My name is Loewe, and I played basketball at Fond Du Lac High School. In 2016-2017, I had the privilege to come to Fond Du Lac. I moved from a small town of Ripon, and it was a privilege to be able to play basketball for the Fond Du Lac team and to be able to fit in to the new school for that whole year. When I first got to Fond Du Lac, I got introduced to a club called FCA, which is the Fellowship of Christian Athletes. I got introduced to it by some of my friends. On Monday, the 14th of November, one of my close friends and I were asked to give a message to the FCA group. We taught a lesson with 4 main points, and the 4 main points were that in life storms will come. The second point was you need to be prepared for the storm. The third point is to trust in Jesus when the storm comes. And the fourth point is to tell everybody what you learned when the storm is over. And then it happened. Just a few days later, on November 18th, it was a Friday night. That night was the night before our basketball team had its first scrimmage. I was driving by myself and I pulled up to an intersection right by my house. I pulled up to the stop sign. I stopped and looked for cars and I didn't see any cars. I decided to go straight, and that was the last thing I remember for a while. When I decided to go through the intersection, I was hit broadside by a truck passing through the intersection. I was hit on my passenger side, then pushed me all the way off the road across a ditch and into a tree. I was flight for life to hospital in Neenah. I had 2 skull fractures on the side of my head, a bad concussion. I had a bruised lung, AC joint in my shoulder was separated, and I had bleeding from my ear, and that ultimately led to some hearing loss in this ear, which I still don't really have back today. Both drivers were injured. I was injured more severely, and by God's blessing, the first person that showed up to the accident was Fond Du Lac's fire chief, Chief Hazy. He knew exactly what to do to take care of me and make sure that I was stable. Once the accident happened, our FCA leader, Pastor John Slaughton, was notified right away, and he notified the rest of the FCA leaders, who began to pray for me right away, and I had prayers being sent before I was even to the hospital. The next couple of days when I was conscious, and I remember I had people visiting me all the time. Every day at least one of the FCA leaders came to visit me to check in and make sure I was doing all right. So once I was released from the hospital, before I had even gone back to school or anything, before I had really left the house, I wanted to come back to the next FCA meeting and just be there. And that was really the first time that I had left the house since my accident, but I thought it would be powerful if I could be there. I reminded all the people in attendance that night of the 4 points of my message. Storms will come. When the storm comes, be prepared. When the storm hits, trust in Jesus. And when it's over, tell everybody what you learned. My storm hit, and I was back to tell them what I had learned. After I was done sharing my story about what happened, I asked Pastor John if he could give a gospel presentation. Half of the FCA group accepted Christ that night. So after the accident, I was really just blessed to be alive. For a while, I hadn't really thought about basketball because I was just glad to be alive and okay. I realized that basketball isn't the biggest thing in life, but if I got to play basketball again, I wanted to be able to glorify God on the court. He's the reason that I'm still alive. All I could really do was just trust in God and pray. One of the cool things I thought when I was leaving the hospital, one of the things as I was recovering, I picked out a game that I wanted to be back to play for. And that would have been exactly 4 weeks after my accident. And that was it was kind of a long shot because technically with my skull fracture, a bone is supposed to take 6 weeks to heal. I just had to trust God that He would heal my head fast. I made that a goal that I wanted to be back for that game, and I prayed a lot and trusted in Him, and I would have been able to play in if it wouldn't have got snowed out. I'm really thankful for my parents and my entire family who supported me through this really tough time in my life. Everyone in my family was extremely supportive and continued to visit me at the hospital when I needed support. I was privileged enough to have signed my letter of intent to a Division I college, the College of William and Mary, actually right before the accident happened. And after the accident happened, I had a lot of support from the William and Mary tribe and from a lot of people that sent prayers up for me and continued to support me through the accident. If I could give any advice to middle school or high school students, I would probably say not to wait. You want to be prepared. Like what happened to me, you never know what God's plan is for you. I was prepared. I had a strong relationship with God, and I believed if I wouldn't have made it that day that I would be in heaven, so I had faith. You should try to impact others too, because you never know how you can affect other people's lives positively and how that could save them.